Okay. Today's video is going to be a travel Q&A. Someone's been asking me to do this for quite a bit of time, and since I'm here, and since I have time, I thought now would be a good time. So yeah, I've been messaged a bunch of questions and let's get to them. Oh, that's difficult. So the places I go when I travel depend mostly on who's there, who I can see, how long I can stay, how expensive it is, and how much my flight is gonna cost. A lot of the places I travel, I either go with friends or I go there and end up meeting friends. So it definitely is a benefit of having friends all over the world. There are people to see and someone that can act as a tour guide for me while I'm there. Definitely convenient. And for those of my friends that are watching this video, I'm very, 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 very appreciative of all your generosity and the time that you spend with me when I am in a new place. I don't travel with a group. Something scratchy under there. I like to travel by myself, flat out. I like to travel by myself. I do have a travel partner. I do have a friend, Amy, who comes with me a lot of the times. We do plan trips to see each other several times a year. I do travel with my boyfriend, but I think that's different than traveling like with a group. In a group travel, at the end of the day, you have to decide if you want to do something. You either have to do it as a group. It's kind of hard to split everybody up. And a lot of the time when I travel, I like to just wander around, to walk, to get a little lost in the city somewhere, have something sweet, try at a bakery, maybe go for a glass of wine. And a lot of the times what's on a group travel agenda is going to be going to museums and seeing the landmarks and all that good stuff. Now, if you are a first-time solo traveler and you're unaware of the situation, socially, politically, economically, whatever's going on, you don't have much reference, group travel is a great alternative to traveling solo because everything will be planned for you, coordinated for you. You have someone worrying about all that stuff for you, your safety, where you're going to be eating, times, when to come home, all of that good stuff. But since I am a solo traveler, or I do travel with one other person, I do a lot of that research myself. I'm very particular about where I travel and make sure that weeks before I'm probably doing research, or I spend hours upon hours choosing hotels because I'm also very picky about that. So I think there are pros and cons to both. For example, like the way I travel, museums aren't necessarily on my top list of things to do. And because I kind of like beat to my own drum, I might miss some things that are really well recommended or pretty popular. But if you're in a group tour, again, like all that's going to be taken into account. You're going to have a guide that's going to give you tons of great information about things that you might have never seen or you might have read about that you want to hear more about. You have a person there to give you all that detailed information, and I think that's great. Also, group tours typically include travel and accommodation and like food, and again, all of that's taken into consideration. So it does kind of take some of the weight off of planning your own trip. No. No, but this again is just me. I am not a good sharer. I've had a handful of roommates, flatmates, whatever in my life, and I was really lucky with all of them because for the most part we were on similar wavelengths, but I prefer to be by myself in my own space. Like, I don't like sharing. I don't want to have to share a bathroom. Especially with like people I don't know, like with my flatmates and my roommates, they have always been people that I've been friends with for a long time before we became like living together. No, I just prefer the hotel lifestyle. I like my bathrobe and my slippers and Another good thing for me about staying in a hotel is that they're typically easy to find. So when I get into a taxi or if I'm lost somewhere and I can tell someone where to go, I choose a hotel that is well reviewed or well located, so that if I need to, it's easy to find. It's easy to tell a taxi driver where to go, or an Uber driver would know how to get there. I typically stay at a hotel that has some sort of concierge, some sort of front desk service. For example, in case of emergencies, you need a doctor abroad, you need someone to translate something for you if you don't speak the language, or you need assistance. And this comes in handy a lot more than you think. And recently in Italy, at a pizza place, instead of charging my card 35 euros, they charged my debit card 350 euros. And when we got the receipt, because everything in it was in Italian in the restaurant, and it was just like ordered strangely on the receipt, I didn't know which restaurant it was, who to contact in order to get them to reverse this charge or whatever. And it's 350 euros. Like, when they're doing their accounting in the night, they're gonna know something's off and something's wrong. So when we got back to the hotel, we immediately went to concierge and I said, I need the front desk, I need some help. My card's been mischarged, blah, blah, blah. And he spent 30 minutes for us calling around to the various places we had been that day, restaurants, trying to track down exactly where this charge was made, and that was super helpful. It's not something I would have been able to do myself. We did try to do it ourselves, and all we got was either people who only spoke Italian or people who didn't exactly understand what the issue was. Like, my card's been mischarged. Like, what do you mean you don't understand? Like, I want my monies back. Yeah. So I find it really convenient to have concierge. They can also give you restaurant recommendations and all that good stuff. Hotels are also pretty well equipped for, I don't know, unexpected situations. For something as simple as if it starts pouring rain outside, they sometimes will have umbrellas back there to lend you. They will have breakfast. They can get a doctor if you need someone, or tell you where a pharmacy is and all that good stuff. And I know if you go online, you can like search like where's the closest pharmacy, but going to the concierge, I can be like, hey, I'm from the US. I typically have Advil with me or a paracetamol. Like, what is the paracetamol called here, or something that's the best alternative, blah, 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 blah. And I find that really helpful. So I try to stay in hotels because I like hotels, and I'm very, 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 very picky about the ones that I stay in, probably to my detriment. However, on the flip side, I have heard a lot of people say great things about hostels. So if you're traveling on more of a budget, or you're traveling with a group of people and you don't want to like have to spend so much for the hotel, a hostel or an Airbnb is a great alternative. I also really like Airbnbs, but I tend to stay in Airbnbs in a city that I know. I don't typically stay in an Airbnb in a city that I've never been to before by myself. I've done it with some friends, but never alone. Yeah, so that's my opinion about hostels. If you're traveling on a budget and you find a nice hostel, well reviewed, guys, check the reviews, then go for that. Otherwise, like, I can't say you can't go wrong with a hotel, because you can, but it's easier to find hotels than it would be to find other lodging, like reputable hotels that have all the amenities and accommodations than some other things. I don't know if that answered that question at all, but I tried. Why not? I think when you travel solo, you have a lot of anxieties to get over. When I'm like a seasoned traveler, so I'm pretty acclimatized to traveling, to airports, to layovers, to, I don't know, being on the move. Actually, being in an airport is one of my favorite places to be. I find it really at home, which is weird, but I've been flying by myself since I was, I don't know, 16 or so it's not really so strange for me. But yeah, I think travel is one of the most unique experiences you can have. Like, there's no two travel experiences that are the same, to the same place, to the same city at the same time. with the same people, you guys are never going to be having the same experience exactly. And I think solo travel is important because a lot of times when you plan group travel or you plan travel with friends, your friends like flake out on you. They're like, oh yeah, we're going. And then at the last minute we'll be like, oh, we can't. Oh, this has come up and I can't go. I'm sorry, like now my priorities have changed. My funding isn't the same as it was when we planned this, blah, blah, blah. And that's happened to me quite a few times. It's happened to some of my friends quite a few times. And it's just the way it is. Like, so having the courage to travel solo, I think, is really important. To just be like, you know what? You guys couldn't come to my trip, screw it. I'm just gonna get up and go on my own. And you're probably gonna have a great time. The importance of that though is when you're doing your research. Like, especially as a woman traveling alone, traveling solo, or as a woman of color traveling alone, traveling solo, like you have to be well versed in the area you're going, well researched, and don't just look up like places you want to go or like attractions you want to see. Look up things like safety, like are there certain areas of the city you shouldn't be at past a certain hour, or are there things about the city that you should know that aren't going to be in like the top 10 travel destinations to see in Reykjavik, or in the visit this elephant sanctuary in Johannesburg. Like, okay, those are awesome, but what else about the city? Like, what other concerns should I have being there alone by myself? Also, traveling solo, one of my top travel tips is to make sure you have another copy of your passport or social security number somewhere or with someone. So for example, I have a mobile passport and my physical passport, and typically a photocopy of my passport. And if you're going to a country that has tumultuous political standings, I guess we could say, it might also be beneficial to know whereabouts your embassy is, your national embassy is, just in case. Like, I had an issue in the past, and when I told my mom about it, she was like, why don't you just go to the embassy? And I was, yeah, I don't know why I didn't just go to the embassy. Like, it wasn't one of my first thoughts. And now, being more traveled, it is something that I consider. Like, should I know in this particular country where the embassy is? Like, is that going to be something I should worry about? Because they'll also be able to do more for you there than any other government office abroad than your home country should. But that means you need to have some form of ID. So carry a copy of your passport or identification with you. Not like while you're traveling around, obviously, but in your hotel or something like that, you might, hidden somewhere, you might want to have a photocopy of your passport. Typically, if you're staying at a hotel though, they're going to take a photocopy of your national travel ID anyway, just in case you get up to something naughty. I think if you're traveling by yourself for the first time, I know a lot of people say like cruises are really nice because it's a great way to meet people, and group tours would also be good for first-time solo travelers who maybe have some anxiety, because a lot of that will be pre-planned for you and a lot of that weight will be dealt with, so you can just literally get out and go. So I try to fly out on Tuesdays. Tuesdays are statistically the cheapest day to buy flights, but again, that depends on time of year, the holidays surrounding where you're flying out of, and the airports you fly out of. Now, my current location, which is going to be withheld, the closest airports to me, or the ones that I prefer to fly out of, are Charlotte, Atlanta, Nashville, Knoxville, JFK, or Boston. That's like the entire Eastern Seaboard. But you can always get hop flights from one of the larger airports and for a couple $100, and then take your meaty flight, your main flight, from one of the larger airports. A, that's going to get you a cheaper flight initially, and B, it's probably going to save you on time and inconvenience. So like if you're flying out of a smaller airport or one that has not a lot of traffic, prices are going to be more expensive to go to some of these places. But I can get a flight from JFK to, or Atlanta to Manchester for around $600 depending on the time of year on a Tuesday. And I can get a hop flight from wherever I am to Atlanta, I know, for about $200. Whereas opposed to flying where I am and flying there and flying there, it might be somewhere from $1,000. Or I could just drive to Atlanta and get on the plane there. Again, that's a $600 flight. So I think don't just search the airport that you're in. It might be convenient to search the other larger airports in your area and then some main hubs like Atlanta or JFK or LAX or Seattle or something like that, if you're in the United States. But if you're not, do the same thing in the country that you're in. Another good tip for buying flights is to check other flight sites. I use Google Flights mostly and Skyscanner and then occasionally Expedia just to compare flights. I am a Delta member, so I also go on there and see if miles or points or whatever is gonna get me the cheapest flight, blah, 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 blah. I have memberships with Delta and Emirates as well because I fly to the UAE once a year or so. So I try to use my points where most convenient, as well as choosing an airport where the flight out is going to be the cheapest. And on Google Flights, when you're searching for your flight, and you found something about that you like, either a time or a flight length or a price, make sure you click whatever that button is to monitor your flight, so that they can keep checking the prices. Now they're gonna send you emails of the price as it's being adapted. It'll be, oh, your flight's gone up by this much, or oh, the flight's gone up by, or down by this much, or your book this time of year is gonna be very expensive. Ignore that information in the email and look down. They're gonna give you 4 or 5 different flight options. The flight that they're looking at, the flight that you've monitored, and then 3 to 4 comparable flights. The flight that they're monitoring you is the one that's going to be fluctuating in price the most drastically. The 3 flights under that typically are gonna be lower. They might be slightly different times. Ow. They might be slightly different times or maybe longer flights, but they're typically going to be cheaper. So once you found something around where you want, you monitor those flights, check that flight activity, and then underneath it, you'll have more options in your email. And when you're ready to, you can go to book that flight. Now, speaking of booking flights, what you want to do is book your flight in an incognito browser. It's shocking to me how many people don't know that. So the more you look at flights, which is want to do, months out, you're gonna be like, oh, well, I'm going to Hawaii this weekend, I'll check flights to Honolulu this week, and I'll check it maybe in another week, and I'll keep checking it to see if flights are going up and going down. The more you do that, the more your price will go up. I don't know what all the details is, but I know that they like track the cookies and stuff, and they see how frequently you're going to this site and looking at these flights, the prices go up. When you're ready to actually book your flight, to put your card information in, go into an incognito browser. Yeah, I don't really do it, but, oh, actually I have done this before, okay. But I let people do this to me, is message your friends, see who has what airline miles. One of my friends, Leela, does American Airlines, and I don't do American Airlines, so I asked for her American Airlines number, bought the flight on my card, but put in her number so she gets all my miles, all my points. Vice versa, when I have family flying in on Delta or something like that, I offered to let them use my SkyMiles number. For them, it gets them like discounted baggage or maybe use of the Delta Lounge, and for me, I get those miles. So it's kind of a win-win. Okay, let's move on to the next question. I typically travel solo, so this is difficult. And when I do travel solo, I never put on the hotel reservation or on anything that I'm by myself. For me, that's just a safety concern. It's just better for everyone to assume that I'm not alone. So that might be a safety thing. But if you are traveling by yourself, that might be something to consider. A lot of things are priced off of 2 people. Hotel rooms are priced for 2. I don't know, sometimes excursions can be priced for 2. This, that, and the other thing. I like to use Viator a lot to book excursions, just because you can really see the details down in there, as well as reviews and such. Sorry. But I don't really know so much about booking for couples. I have planned and booked a couple of trips with my boyfriend. There's a link down there somewhere. where I kidnapped him and took him away. But I chose where we went literally based off of the price of flights. So if you go back to my tip on how to buy flights and you price flights just right, you get the cheapest flight you can based on that location, and then from that location you find hotels and stuff comparable within your budget. So I don't really buy anything until I've got all my individual pieces until I've got all my individual pieces like sussed out, if that makes sense. Travel by yourself. Traveling with a person, you guys need to be really upfront about the things that you do and do not like to do. So every time I've traveled with a group in the past, the first ever October Festapalooza was with two of my friends, Leela and Kelly. And I spent weeks in advance making an itinerary using a site called Travify.com. I'm not sure if it's still a site that individuals can use. I think they're geared more toward like professionals and travel agents and stuff now. But I used to plan all the flights. You could input links and such and connect each individual person to the itinerary so they could look at, modify, put opinions and all that good stuff. See prices for things. They could pay on the site for things. We could split things 3 ways and they could pay here, pay here, and pay here. And you could mark who's paid for what. They had like a whole budget section. It was amazing. So I think you really have to be upfront with your budget, first of all, like who's coming and how much they're willing to spend, the costs of the activities that you want to do. Don't just choose activities because they're going to be like the top activity. Think about how much it's going to cost, and is that cost actually worth it? Like, is $85 to do this thing worth it? Or could you hoof it yourself there and do something similar that's going to be a better activity for like 1/3 the money? Like, sorry, like that's also really important. I think time management is going to be important to whether or not your partner really enjoys something. Like, if you want to do an activity that you don't particularly enjoy, like going to a museum or spending an hour in a park, think about how long it takes before you get bored doing something. So like if I'm going shopping and I take my boyfriend with me shopping, how long is it between we enter the store and he is bored out of his mind and find some happy middle ground so that you can leave before he gets like irritated and bored and is done with said activity. So you find a compromise. Be like, oh, let's go to the museum, but I have it planned that we're only there for like an hour or 2 and then we can go to lunch, and then we'll go do whatever the activity is that you would do. Find it's all about compromise to make the trip as enjoyable as possible for the both of you. Another thing is to find activities that are diverse. And I don't mean like, I'm gonna choose this and then you're gonna choose the polar opposite. I mean, maybe if you choose to go into like a city center and you're walking around, you're gonna do window shopping or whatever, that's really diverse because you can pop into the stores as they appeal to each person. So in Manchester, we walked around downtown and I was like, oh my gosh, let's go into this bubble tea shop and this and this and this. And then my boyfriend saw a bike cafe. He's like, oh my gosh, let's go to the bike cafe. Like, it's, you can easily pull each other different directions and into each other's different interests without spending too much time there and finding things that you both enjoy. Want to do things that only you like to do, travel by yourself. Don't typically set itineraries. I know I've talked about them just now, but I don't really set an itinerary. I had an itinerary for when we went to Italy, and I had an itinerary for October Festapalooza, and I think that's about it. I do like to look up in advance online, potentially things I'd want to see or things I think are popular, but I normally do that the day of or the day before. I like to take a little notebook with me, something like this. It's got a little clipboardy part here, and then some flip pads. And I have an example here. So then the night before, when you're laying in bed or watching TV or relaxing back in your hotel or your hostel or whatever, I like to go online and do a little research. And then I decide kind of how I want to go about doing things. Or maybe at breakfast the day of, I'll be like, oh, maybe we could do this, maybe we could do this. So this one is for Sheffield, which is in the UK. And it says, oh, Sheffield Winter Garden tomorrow, ? Like maybe we could do that tomorrow. and the Peace Gardens, and Rare and Racy, which was a record store, and a bookshop to get my dad's birthday present. And then it has 2 or 3 places, actually this is 4 places here that might be good food spots that either have like good reviews, or maybe I saw pictures of them on Instagram or something right before and was like, hey, we can choose this. But these whole activities, especially because choosing one of these places to eat, maybe 2 of them, and then 3 activities, it's not more than half the day's time. Like it's breakfast, a few things, lunch, maybe 1 more thing, and then you have the rest of the whole day, which leaves time, at least for me, for exploration, for getting maybe lost in the city to go for a drink or something, or maybe while I was making this list, my travel partner or my boyfriend or my friend was like, actually, like, what about this thing? It's easy to like be like, oh, let's like screw the list. Like, let's just go walk around and do whatever we want to do. So I kind of really wing my itineraries. I wing the time until I get there, and then I'm like, oh, because sometimes if you plan an itinerary in advance, you get there and things don't happen the way you want them to. Like maybe it rains out one of your activities. Okay, but have you already paid for it? Is it an inconvenience? Do you have to reschedule it? Like all this stuff. So I like to choose activities the day before the day of, and then at least I'll know. I guess this isn't a question, it's more of a comment, and it says, can you arrange a trip for me? So if you need some trip guidance, or you want someone to help you arrange your next vacation, but you don't really want to go through a travel agency, or you just want some ideas for your itinerary, or maybe some hot places and where have you been. If I've been there, or if I know some people that have been there, I'd be more than happy to give you some advice and to help you, you know, get the ball rolling, get some ideas rolling, or maybe you need advice about something else, or there was a question that you have that was not asked in this person's email. Feel free to contact me. My Instagram is in the end card somewhere, or you can message me down below, or email me or something like that. I try to put out videos every Friday. I mean, sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. I don't know, I'm trying. But I have more travel videos to post. I shot a makeup tutorial this morning, so hopefully I'll put that up soon too. And then we've got some really cool stuff happening in the fall that I'm hoping to catch on camera. Okay, all right, that's it. Roam free, wild things. That's gonna be my new thing, by the way, because I'm a wild thing. All right, bye.